lots going on in the NBA. So we had to bring in Erik from eTalk 21 Sports to sort of dive in and bounce around as we are, a couple weeks out, and about a week out from the draft and just a few days out from the start of free agency. Erik, buddy, man, it's funny. You and I, over the last few years, we talk so often and every couple days and recording segments once a week. When I don't talk to you for like a week or so, it feels like I haven't talked to you for like a year, man. Always happy to be back chatting some sports with you. And now we get, a lot of buzz in the NBA. Like, this is the time period of the year now, always leading right into 4th of July, between when the NBA draft is and then like the start of summer league, where a bunch of stuff is happening.
Yeah, I mean, and we already seen like free agents, some big trades, some people we thought would be moving, not moving, some head scratching moves. It's always an interesting time of the year and how everything's going to play out. And then quite frankly, there's some teams I'm a little shocked haven't made a move. So, it's kind of interesting to see. And there's a couple, top 25 players from that 20 to 28, 20 to 30 range that it's going to be interesting to see where they go, because they're a little younger and they could be a domino that could lead to something.
Yep, it could kind of shift the power in some spots. So let's sort of bounce around and take a look, because we have NBA.com pulled up here, and they have the team-by-team moves so far, and we'll hit on some of the big ones. For the Hawks, Murray heads over to the Pelicans. What'd you think about that? Murray and Trae Young were two that had been rumored to be moving. We haven't seen Trae move yet. Lakers were rumored with Murray for a while, but he's not like a number one, probably not even like a number two on your team. He's probably a pretty solid 3, and he's a guy that has the potential to be a good two-way player. He struggled a little bit last year defensively. Where do you think he will kind of impact them, or how did you like that move?
I mean, it wasn't working.
Yeah.
He came there with great expectations for them to build on that Eastern Conference run that they had. Didn't really pan out. I would have thought they'd be able to get a better return than what they did for him. Obviously, for the Pelicans, they're trying to get another piece for Zion, CJ, like a better two-way player. And to me, this kind of means that Brandon Ingram, is going to be on a move. One of the big videos that's circling around Twitter, X, whatever it is Cade Cunningham of the Pistons and Brandon Ingram have been working out. Trajan Langdon, who was in the front office of the Pelicans, who's a big Ingram guy, just got hired to head up the Pistons general manager position. So that's a move I could see happening. But in terms of the Hawks, I mean, this doesn't make them better. No. Doesn't make them worse. I mean, the ball will be in Trae Young's hands, so probably.
Boston hasn't had to do much, right? They've just re-signing their guys.
Where do they get all this money? Like, literally.
That's the thing, though. They've got 4 guys making $30+ million a year, 5. Their owner just put the team up right now. They're going to be, I believe, the most expensive team in NBA history. So this is one of those things where everything went well for them last year, and they're going to be able to run it back, and you can understand why. They're not looking to make a bunch of changes. I can understand. Nobody really would, but they don't have a long window with this group of guys with how much money they're all making.
No, and like the window can close quick. There's been this curse. Teams haven't made it through the second round. Everyone thought Denver was going to be just as good.
They were like penciled in, right? We all just thought they were going to be.
Stuff can happen. Like if
an
Brown,
injury or two,
both of them go down. Holiday's a year older. We need to remember all those guys are playing the Olympics too. How is their body going to handle being that long? We saw Middleton and Holiday after they played in the Olympics, after the Bucks won it in 6. Both those guys were just physically beat up, and they took a huge step backwards going into the following year. Is that going to happen here with Tatum, Brown, et cetera, and Holiday playing on the Olympic team?
The Nets are a really interesting team because we saw Bridges go to the Knicks, and they're the team that's getting ready to sell. So like right now, my Lakers haven't made any moves yet. And I got to say I'm still just kind of waiting to make my judgment on the Lakers right now is because what I like is they kept their pieces they needed to keep as far as assets. They brought back Christie. They brought back D'Lo. So you have those pieces. You didn't lose them for nothing. And now you're sitting and can the Lakers get like a DFS or a Cam Johnson from the Nets. I think those would be really nice fits for the Lakers. Either of those wing type players. Those are guys that I think a lot of teams are probably looking at, Eric. So I don't expect Brooklyn to get better this year, but they have some really interesting pieces that teams still value quite a bit. Even Schroeder, who comes there now, and Bogdanovich, I think, are guys that are there that they probably have very little use for. So they may send all of those veteran players out to teams that are in more win now modes.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a team that's going to flip people, try to get as many assets. Honestly, they're probably looking to sell Ben Simmons for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
Anything they can get from him, they're going to try to look to move him, try to look to move Cam Johnson, who's really highly sought off DFS, a good 3D wing defender. They're going to be able to get some stuff for him. So I think, they're rebuilding and they have no picks. So this is what they kind of have to do. They have to go in that heavy tank and kind of start building assets and use what Oklahoma City did as the blueprint.
Yep. And they do have a couple like nice valuable pieces that right now what they've done too is wait, because teams like the Lakers, maybe the Warriors, they're going to get a little more anxious in the next few days as you and I are recording on Wednesday. So like leading into Saturday, I feel like the Lakers are going to try to make a move before Saturday because LeBron talked about how he wants to start focusing a little bit more on the Olympics, but I don't want, so this is a team that maybe now can get a little bit more, an extra pick or a second rounder or an extra player than they could have a few days ago.
Yeah. And let's be honest, if LeBron was 36, Clay's going to the Lakers. I don't know if that's the right move for them, but Clay would have gone to the Lakers if LeBron was a little bit older. But the fact of the matter is not. I think getting a young player, like you mentioned, Cam Johnson,
is
someone
better for their overall would wait. And that's the thing. Like I like Clay as a player, and I'm not going to act like it's great. It's not great publicly for the Lakers to feel like they're striking out on some of these guys, but there are way better fits for the Lakers than a guy like Klay Thompson.
Oh, 100%. Clay's a great, I love Clay. He's one of my favorite players.
Me too.
But in terms of what is going on with the Lakers, he's not the best fit.
And what they need and what they have, like another guard that's not really very good defensively at this point of his career, is not really what they need. They need either a big, either a guard. If you're going to get rid of D'Angelo, you need someone who can also handle the ball a little bit.
You're the perfect fit for you.
Yeah, and like I said, I have no problem using D'Angelo to upgrade from a team building. They needed that asset to come back so they could at least use that in a possible trade moving forward. Charlotte, not a whole lot for them. Young team. They just are kind of bringing in pieces. The Bulls are interesting. They've gotten rid of Caruso. They brought in Drummond, but they're kind of waiting on what the Levine move is, because nobody really seems like they want Levine.
No one wants Levine.
Like is that a guy that the Lakers panic move if nothing happens?
If you guys get Levine, I'd rather want Clay than Levine. The thing that people need to remember about Levine,
I don't like
he's
Levine.
A negative player. He's a negative player. When you look at all his win losses, his plus minus on the court, he's a negative player. Yeah. So
I don't like Levine.
Can he talented? Yeah. Can he play ball? Yeah. But in terms of winning, he's been around so much losing culture his whole NBA life. That's kind of what he's used to. Patrick Williams.
And he makes too much money right now, right? Like Levine is the type of player, unfortunately, at this point, he's going to have to go somewhere and prove he can win until that will change. And he'll probably have to do it later in his career for less money when he's more of a veteran and he can be more willing to make some sacrifices and not be a guy that's making $50 million.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting. The Bulls have the highest ticket sale revenues, and they're just kind of in that dead zone, and they're just all about making money. It's going to be interesting to see, do
DeRozan, right? He was
trade of Caruso mean they're going to finally blow it up and start to build it, or are they just going to keep Vooch, keep DeRozan, kind of keep everyone together and just kind of be in that no man's land? I love Patrick Williams. I wish he would have go someplace else. I think this is a guy that could be something in the league, but he's kind of
on a good team.
He's kind of stuck in nowhere in Chicago.
Yeah. Cavs re-signed Mitchell. Haven't done anything else other than that.
I think Garland's going to be on the move. It wouldn't surprise me if they move Allen too.
Yep. Dallas, couple maneuvers here. So Derrick Jones Jr. is out. They bring in basically Clay in that spot. instead of Derrick Jones Jr.
Defensively is going to be a huge step down.
I know.
They brought in Marshall. Marshall's a great defender. Maybe they at the end of the game do the offense-defense substitutions with Clay. But let's face it, he's less than a 40% three-point shooter at this stage of his career. He's not what he used to be.
No,
and no one in their right mind is sitting back and saying, hey, if Klay Thompson was on the Mavericks, they would have won the title. We'll get to my Pistons really soon. I'll talk about Tim Hardaway when we get there.
Yeah. So this, I think Dallas is kind of in the same spot where they were last year. They'll probably be a little bit better because they still are young and they have some young pieces moving forward. But I agree with you. Klay is a real guy on name right now. Mm-hmm. He's really living on rep, and that one, it did not disappoint me as a fan of a team that he was possibly going for. It would have been cool with the tie to his dad and Michael and stuff. And he said, I like Klay as a player, but he's also a little different too. Klay, mentally, he's just kind of his own guy. He goes with the flow a little bit different than other people do. So he even pointed out, I think some of the reports today were that he wanted kind of a fresh start, and he thought he would get a newer, fresher start in Dallas than what you were pointing out. He even said he thought that the Lakers were a lot like the Warriors in that you had this sort of veteran, proven, older team kind of group of guys, and now he gets to kind of go somewhere else and do things his own way, which, you know what? For everyone, everyone has different motivations, and everyone had you and I, it will analyze things on what makes sense for a team and for their fit and for their money. But we always got to stop and remember, I wouldn't want to move a certain place. You may not want to move a certain place. We have family, you have other stuff going on. People have all these other things besides just playing basketball or coaching football or whatever that is. The Nuggets, man, and your window can go quick. And we got to remember that the Nuggets were not the deepest team in the world the last couple of years, Eric, even when they were winning impressively and winning the title 2 years ago. And then you lose a key piece and a guy who we've seen now for the Lakers and the Nuggets. He's a winning player. You were talking about losing players, right? Guys like Levine, who unfortunately they have a reputation, and until they prove it, they're established on losing teams. The last 5 years, KCP's done a lot of winning, man. And it's not a coincidence when you can get a guy like him that'll be, maybe your fifth best player on your team, but you know exactly what you're going to get from this guy. He plays very good D. He hits 3-pointers at a nice clip, and he doesn't try to do too much. He doesn't go out of his role. He doesn't get crazy and throw up weird random shots anymore. He's really defined to a 3-and-D guy. I think this is going to be a big loss for them.
Yeah, they obviously, the fact they traded Reggie Jackson for money just kind of sums everything up.
Yeah. Your Pistons, man. Let's talk about them. They lock up with Cade, and then you bring in some vets, which is really nice. You got Tim Hardaway Jr., you get Tobias Harris coming in here, and you talked about rumors. There have been rumors with them to a couple different stars, guys that might be disgruntled elsewhere and want to go and prove that they're maybe better than what their reputation is. I kind of like where you are right now with Detroit.
I think I think getting the vets,
new
Tim
coach,
Hardaway, Tobias Harris is huge for them. Going to be able to help these young players out. I think the key name to watch is BI. I think he's number one. I think number two is Marketed from the Jazz. I think one of those two is going to end up in Detroit. The Miles Bridges stuff, I don't think many teams are going to want him because of his off the field stuff, which was terrible.
Yeah, he talked about the Clippers because the Clippers
I don't want the Pistons to go after.
Me neither. The Clippers have been rumored to him because they've done this kind of thing before where they've given guys who have had some struggles a second chance. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be given a second chance. I'm just saying from a fan standpoint and from a team building standpoint, if it's hard to want to invest a lot into players that you don't know you can trust. And when you're investing a lot into them, you want to just do it with the players that you feel like you can trust the most. I think we have to give that guy another year or two to really prove it before you feel a little more comfortable.
I feel like we already gave him a second chance and already blew it. He shouldn't be in the league. That's just, you know what?
No, and then I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. Warriors, going to look a little different. So no Clay. Chris Paul's out, but they do bring in Kyle Anderson. They bring in Melton. I've liked both of those guys are better defensively, not necessarily the 3-point shooters that you would think of when you think of like a Klay Thompson, but maybe a little bit better as far as like team building overall. They're heavily rumored right now with marketing. It feels like that's the piece that they're trying to go get. So he's someone who could end up here. Anything to mention about the Warriors?
The key piece is going to be Wiggins. It wouldn't surprise me if Wiggins is on the move. Where, I don't know, but I really think Wiggins could be. You talked about Zach LaVine. The Bulls offered LaVine and a first-round draft pick for Chris Paul, and the Warriors turned it down.
That's crazy. I know.
So, I mean,
they didn't want D'Angelo, but like you can understand for them, that's smart turning down guys like LaVine and D'Angelo because, Eric, they're not going to be able to play those guys next to Curry.
Not at all. So, I mean,
defensively, it just doesn't make sense, Yeah. So that you can get it. Like it's about team building too, and the Warriors have done a good job with that through the years. Houston hasn't done much. They do have wiggle room.
Houston's gonna make a run at Durant.
Yeah,
they're trying to acquire all these picks to make a run at Durant.
Pacers just bring in Wiseman, take a swing with him as like a backup big. You done with Wiseman.
He's not as good as Jalen Smith. Losing Jalen Smith hurts them. That backup big that can come in when Miles Turner is hurt. That's
consistent. You can trust him, right? Wiseman's still more of a project who may have a high ceiling if you can like get the best out of him, but what can you count on for now? A team that's more of like a top of the conference team.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. I think we're going to see the Pacers take a step back, though. I mean, their style is hard to play. Clippers, I mean, look, they brought back Harden on the cheap. They're going to lose Plumlee, which is actually a pretty big loss because, again, a backup big. Bringing back two who can hit, losing George. But, Paul George isn't what he used to be.
And for them, it's always going to come down to Kawhi. It's always going to come down to his health and his availability. And it didn't work. If you think, I remember what it was like when it was 4th of July, 5-6 years ago when the rumors were about Kawhi, where was he going to go? And it looked like he was going to come to the Lakers. Remember we have a big 4th of July party at my family's house and a bunch of my friends were around. And then the move went, and then it was not only Kawhi, it was Kawhi and Paul George, and very disappointing tenure for these guys because they gave up so much to get Paul George.
They were never healthy though. I mean,
they were never healthy. No,
they were never healthy together. And Paul George had a solid OK City run. He had an MVP type season.
He did.
We didn't know Shea would be that.
They got Shea and Jalen Williams both.
Yeah.
And they still have a pick swap and another first-round pick to come on top of that. So crazy trade there. Lakers haven't done anything as far as new players. But what I will say, I know everyone says the sky is falling because they haven't gone some of these guys. There hasn't really been many that I'm looking at going, that was the guy that I think they needed. You pointed this out last year. I'm a Max Christie fan. Like if you're telling me the Lakers had the same roster from last year, but instead of Prince and Reddish, they're going to get Christie and Vanderbilt to be the guys that are playing a lot more. And then you had Gabe Vincent, who also, we got to remember, Gabe Vincent got signed coming off of playing good minutes in the finals the year before. And then he missed an entire year. So I don't know the Lakers had a lot to do. I still think they need things. I'm not saying they're done or they have a championship level roster, but for me, the most important things that I wanted the Lakers to make sure they did, Eric, was keep their assets so they have those to still use. They still have their picks right now. They still have D'Angelo, Christie, Rui, Austin. They've got all those guys if they need to use them. And now today, what I was starting to get nervous about, they hadn't had any fill-in in their coaching staff. But today, we found out that McMillan and Brooks are both going to be part of the staff, and that's what you need. They needed just guys that have been head coaches before that are going to be there to give the experience to Redick because Redick's never been a head coach. Redick hasn't run practices. Redick hasn't done post-game, pre-game, media stuff, like media day, like all these things that are just more than going out there and coaching. At least he has two guys that have been head coaches now that know what to do. They've won a lot of games, and I was getting nervous about that part, Erik. So that made me feel a little bit better now today. Like, okay, there's a couple adults in the room now.
Yeah, I mean, you need that assistant coach that has head coach, because there's a lot of stuff that goes into the planning that people don't realize. And these players don't realize the stuff behind the scenes. There's a huge plan that gets dwindled down to like 4 or 5 things for a practice. That's what Reddick didn't know. Having someone like McMillan there is going to help him greatly. You guys had a steal in the draft.
Connect, right? How did that guy fall so low?
I have no idea. He can range for days. And, with...
Can he be like their 9th best player? Can he be like your 3rd guy off the bench in like some games?
He's a rotational piece.
I think so too, because he's 23, right?
Yeah, he's legitimately a rotational piece. He can
I think
shoot,
so too.
He can create off the dribble.
And maybe that's why they felt a little less like they've had to go out and get a guy like Klay Thompson, who you're kind of hoping that this guy can do a lot of those things, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would rather, as crazy as it sounds right now, I would rather have that.
For the money, for the value that he is and what you're paying him for basically just getting a pick. And then the Bronny stuff, like, okay, if we have a conversation, Erik, in 6 months and Bronny's playing 30 minutes closing games instead of the Laker rotation guys, I will change my tune. Bronny's not going to be playing. There's going to be a couple games at the end of the year where they'll have them start together. There'll be some games in blowouts. Bronny, it was going to be a 55th pick. It's basically like you're signing an unrestricted free, so that doesn't bother me at all.
It doesn't.
Come on, Giannis did the same thing with his brother.
Giannis does the same thing. Look at these front office. Hell, look at the freaking Cowboys.
It's the Bus family. The way they've run this.
Look at the Cowboys
with his son.
Jerry Jones's kids are on it.
Does
look
not
at what the
bother
Pistons
me.
did with Weaver's there. How many Weaver's kids were on in the scouting department? Everyone does this. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't. I thought it would have been hilarious if the Celtics would have drafted
Me too.
him.
I thought they were going to. I really did. That would have been pretty funny, even me being a Laker fan, to force us to trade him someone or some sort of an asset to get Ronnie back. But Erik, I'm a Laker fan, obviously. What do you think the best move for them would be? Is it something with Grant? Is it something with maybe I heard of stuff with some guys from Utah? I heard we talked about maybe some Brooklyn guys. Is there a move out there for them right now? What, or is there something that you like, or a guy that you've heard that you like, or what do you think?
I mean, obviously, if they could get him, I don't think they're going to be able to get him marketed. Put marketed in there.
They were rumored with him too.
But if you have to get market in, I think you do have to give up Austin Reeves.
Yeah, I agree.
Which I don't know
if the Lakers are going to do that.
I mean, I think the most realistic option is Jeremy Grant.
Yeah, I think so too. And he would fill some needs and he'd fit well. What on top of that?
He can defend, he can rebound, he
hit
can
your threes.
When LeBron sits and they need somebody on the wing that can create, he can create. He can do a lot of stuff people don't realize about. And I think he would be a phenomenal
great fit
guy. When LeBron has to sit out, because of load management, he can be like the point forward.
Yep. They still need a big. They need one more big still. And they're not perfect, but I think that the narrative with the Lakers is always just too extreme one way or the next.
Well, I mean, Paul Reed's right there. I mean, Paul Reed.
Yeah. He does. That's exactly the type of guy they need. They need a backup big that can give them 15 minutes, 2 shifts a game, and just be a presence. Because the problem is Jackson Hayes and Wood, those are your 3rd or 4th big, probably your 4th big. They can get a little run or in certain matchups, but you just can't depend on them quite enough for a team like that. So, while I'm not jumping for joy with what the Lakers have done, I don't think the sky is quite falling yet. And I think it's always sort of.
Give me optimistic.
Yeah, it's always somewhere in the middle, especially because, like you said, they if they're going to be able to get Christie and Connect to be rotation guys, this team's going to be better than they were last year. Already. Yeah. That doesn't mean they're going to win a title, but they're going to be better than they were last year. Memphis hasn't done anything, but they're going to be healthier this year, just with Ja coming back. Miami hasn't done anything, but they're rumored for a lot of guys always.
And a rumor that whatchamacallit's gone too. Butler's leaving.
Butler's leaving too. Yeah, right. I heard that. DeRozan was one that they rumored here. Your Bucks, another team that like you don't really have to do much, right? You're just you're going to be young. You got to. So what are you? You need to make a trade. Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do?
I mean, in a perfect world, you got to. The guy I like the most is marketing, but they have nothing. They literally have nothing they can throw to get a marketing type player. I mean, that's basically it. They need a marketing BI to kind of take over for that Chris Middleton role. Chris Middleton is just not what he used to be. And, Dame's going to be older. Giannis is going to be older. Lopez is going to be older. I mean, I have no idea what they need to do, but they need to do kind of like a hard reset around Dame and Lopez and look to move some of these older pieces. I just don't think they can do it. And unfortunately, I think their window has closed. And I think one of the big mistakes was Middleton and Holiday playing that Olympics right after they won the title, the COVID year.
Yeah. It's amazing.
That's a lot of basketball because they played right away. That season went deeper than it was supposed to. We need to remember that playoff series, that went a month longer. And
they went into October.
Yeah, they flew. They went literally the day after the parade. So they won it on a Sunday. The parade was a Tuesday. They left on a Wednesday to go to Japan, I believe the Olympics were in, and we're playing games on a Thursday.
So there was the off season was basically like a month and a half for the teams that played all the way through. So like and so it really impacted the teams that played deep into the COVID year, and then the teams that had to play deep coming out of the COVID year. Yeah. Those two sets of teams.
You need to worry about the Celtics. I mean,
absolutely.
They have 3 guys playing the Olympics.
Yep. Like, I mean, I'm worried about that with the Lakers. Lakers have AD and LeBron, who both played a lot of games this year.
Yeah. But I mean, like at least they had a little bit of the break. The Celtics played
all the way deep.
Not as compact. You know what I mean? Like the season still doesn't start till Halloween.
Yep.
When it was back then, because of the season drafting longer, it was just more
less time off. Yeah.
Started a little earlier. I don't know. It was just funky that year with everything. So
yep. The T-Wolves they made a trade for player in the draft. They get rid of Kyle Anderson, but that was something that has gotten some really good, like positive buzz for them.
It was arguably the steal of the draft, what they were able to do, getting Dillingham from the Wildcats. That gives them another player that can create off the dribble. When we remember looking at this team, they just had no one that could create off the dribble. Now you got a young kid coming in who's showing that he can do that. I mean, home run pick for them.
They just feel like they're really well run right now. Like they're making smart moves.
Like the next step. There's obviously some management concerns and everything.
And that's key. Yeah, like the ownership concerns, right? Like but the guys, like I like their coaching staff, and I like some of the people that are making their decisions for them right now the last few years. And everybody scoffed at the Gobert trade, and then this year it actually ended up kind of playing out pretty well for them. They looked like a team that should be, vying for a title. Yeah. The Pelicans, they add Murray, lose Big V, lose Larry Nance, Marshall, Daniels, some of their other like lower down the bench players, but what they're going to do with BI, I guess, is like what's kind of looming over them.
That's right? Like the next domino to fall. What happens with Ingram?
Yeah. Because then we'll have to see who they get back for that and what other kind of moves they do around that. Because they probably feel better than they have in a long time about what they got out of Zion last year.
Oh, 100%.
Like, this was the first time that anyone ever thought that this was, like, possible to get that kind of a year from him. Just a few more minutes left for us, Eric, as we finish up talking the rest of the league. The Knicks, they bring in Bridges. So we got the Villanova Knicks here, and they re-sign Anunoby. They lose Hartenstein, which is a big impact for them. But Size-wise.
I mean, size. What are you going to have? OG Anunoby guarding Embiid? That's my one worry.
Especially because Robinson, right?
Yeah, because Robinson's injury prone. He's a little
He's
lost.
So hard to count on.
Miles Bridges, like, how is he going to adapt to playing with all these guys? It seems to me they have all these players that are the same guy. Dante, Bridges, OG, all these guys are like the same.
But like Bridges and OG for sure.
Yeah.
Right. And Hart is even kind of like a poor man's version of those guys.
Yeah, Hart can't shoot. I mean, if one guy we're going to see, if they end up moving one guy and getting big, it would probably be Josh Hart.
Yeah. So the Villanova Knicks there. The Thunder have probably
get your futures in right now on OKC.
Yeah. They've improved where their weaknesses were. They've improved.
They got Hartenstein, another big. You can move Holmgren over, which is absolutely huge. They got Caruso, a lockdown wing who can shoot the three. Their guys, Wiggins and Wallace and Giddey, the moment was too big for them. Now you got Caruso, who's been there, Hartenstein, who's been there. A+ for the Thunder. In my eyes, they won the offseason.
Completely agree. They've been as good as anyone. The Magic were able to lock down a lot of their key free agents.
Every year there's a team that gets in the playoffs. It's a young team that kind of like gets that sniff, then makes the run. And we got to make sure we build into them going into next year. So with that being said, I think right now the best bet on the board, future-wise, value-wise, is Paolo Banchero, MVP. I think him being in the playoffs, getting that sniff is going to propel him and into that next level. And when you kind of look at the lay of the land, Embiid's probably going to be resting a ton. Tatum, Brown resting a ton. Giannis probably resting a ton. On the West, maybe Luka, but Luka's so high usage, and now he's playing the Slovakian Olympic team. It wouldn't surprise me if we see him rest a little bit. You got Banchero who's just kind of there, who just kind of got into the big spotlight. We could see him be next year's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, you have a nice complementary piece with KCP, a guy who has won. And
defensively, they're great. They just don't have enough scoring.
Yeah, and a little more from Isaac this year. You can probably count on a little more from him. The 76ers add Paul George. They bring back they add Drummond, and they add Eric Gordon, lose Batum and Melton, and they re-sign Maxey and Oubre Jr. So, I mean, we'll see. It's going to be
added a lot of pieces, but
how are they going to fit?
He talks a lot of shit for someone that hasn't gotten out of the second round.
He does.
He talks so much, and it's like, dude, you haven't done anything. And
this roster now is got to be as good or as full as he's had.
They don't
this
win
is
it
like
now.
No excuses more. You better get to the finals or have a 7-game series against Boston.
Western
Conference Finals.
Like, right? If you don't get it, Embiid has to start taking some of the blunt in the brain. Maxey's going to be interesting to see his next step. Oubre, a great wing defender. Paul George, not what he used to be. That's my only worry.
Suns, the keys for them, are they going to have to make a trade with one of their, either Booker or a Durant?
They're probably going to move one. I think Durant ends up with the Rockets.
As we kind of look through the bottom teams here, Eric, I mean, the Wizards, they haven't really done much. I mean, they brought in Big V and Bragdon, and they haven't had to move any. Their key piece is Kuzma. If he's going to go somewhere, that'll be interesting. And then kind of Utah, they're another one of those big dominoes to fall with Markkanen, right?
I think that's a big thing. I think Markkanen's gone. I would do a backflip and record it if he ends up with Detroit. Portland, young team, they need Scoot to take a big step forward.
And Grant, they have the piece of Grant that they can use for someone, hopefully, to overpay.
The big thing that they did in the draft was they drafted the big guy from UConn, which kind of leaves that DeAndre Ayton is going to be on the move.
Yep. Spurs bring in Chris Paul to try to help Wemby learn.
Huge move for them. Great move. Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if the Spurs, because of how good their shooting coach is, make a play for Ben Simmons for pennies on the dollar.
Eric, you and I will reconnect on Monday. I think probably after all this is kind of finalized and official, we'll talk more about stuff on the weekend. We both got to run. Thank you so much for being flexible and helping out here, and we'll talk more about NBA free agency. We'll be following you, Eric, at ETOF21 on social media and at ETOF21 Sports all over the place.